Most people think they're good at reading others. They're not. They're just good at believing what they're shown. There are 7 psychological techniques so precise, so deeply rooted in how the human brain actually works, that once you know them, you will never look at a conversation the same way again. These aren't tricks from a self-help book. They're patterns that negotiators, interrogators, and behavioral scientists have studied for decades. And most people walking past you right now have no idea they're already broadcasting everything. Trick number 3, the one involving silence, is so effective, it's been flagged as a manipulation tool in high-stakes negotiations. Let's begin. Trick number 1, the baseline scan. Before you can read anyone, you need to understand something most people completely ignore. People don't act randomly. They act in patterns. Now imagine this. You walk into a room. 2 people are sitting across from each other. One is relaxed, leaning back, arms open, voice calm. The other is tense, arms crossed, eyes shifting. Most people would instantly judge the second person. Something's off. But here's the problem. You don't actually know that, because you don't know what normal looks like for them. That's where the baseline comes in. A baseline is simple. It's how someone behaves when nothing is wrong. No pressure, no stakes, no reason to hide. Now imagine a second scenario. Same person, same room. But now you've been watching them for a few minutes. You've seen how they laugh, how they sit, how they speak when they're comfortable. You've quietly collected data, and then something changes. Their posture tightens, their voice drops slightly, their hands stop moving. That's when it matters. Because now, you're not guessing anymore, you're comparing. Most people walk into conversations trying to be understood. The smartest people? They walk in trying to observe. And here's the part most people miss. People don't reveal themselves when they're being questioned. They reveal themselves when they think no one is paying attention. So the next time you're in a conversation, don't rush to speak. Don't rush to impress. Just sit back, watch, and build the baseline. Because once you have that, every small change becomes loud. Trick number 2, micro-expression windows. Now let's go deeper, because even when people try to hide, their face betrays them. Imagine this. You ask someone a simple question. Are you okay with this? They nod. They say, yeah, of course. But for just a fraction of a second, something slips. A tiny flicker. A flash of irritation. Maybe even contempt. And then, it's gone. Most people miss it, because it happens too fast. But here's the truth. The face lies. But not fast enough. Before the brain can fully control the expression, the real emotion leaks through. These are called micro-expressions, and they happen in less than half a second. Now imagine 2 versions of you. Version 1, you hear the words. You trust the smile. You move on. Version 2, you catch the flicker, just for a moment, but it's enough. Now the conversation changes, because now you know something doesn't match, and out of all micro-expressions, there's one you should never ignore. Contempt. Contempt is different. It's subtle, usually just one side of the face, a slight lift, almost like a smirk. But psychologically, it means something very specific. It means, I'm above you. Not disagreement, not frustration. Superiority. And once contempt enters a dynamic, respect is already gone. So here's what you do. You don't react. You don't call it out. You just notice it. You store it. And you adjust how seriously you take that person moving forward. Because the goal isn't to confront. The goal is to understand what's really happening beneath the surface. Trick number 3, strategic silence. Now this is where everything changes. Imagine 2 people in a conversation. Person A asks a question. Person B answers. Normally, what happens next? Person A nods, smiles, says something like, yeah, I get that. That's what most people do. Because silence feels uncomfortable. Now imagine a different version. Same question, same answer. But this time, person A says nothing. No nod, no smile, no reaction. Just silence. And suddenly, something shifts. Person B starts talking again. They add more details. Then more. Then they start explaining things they weren't even asked. Why? Because silence creates pressure. Not loud pressure, not obvious pressure, but psychological pressure. Silence feels like judgment. It feels like, they know something. I need to explain more. And when people feel that, they fill the gap. Now here's where it gets powerful. Imagine 3 types of people: an honest person, a nervous person, and someone hiding something. You use silence on all 3. The honest person? They get slightly confused, maybe a little annoyed, but they stay consistent. The nervous person? They start rambling, over-explaining, trying to make sure you understand. But the person hiding something? That's where it gets interesting. Their story starts changing. Small details shift. They correct themselves. They backtrack. Not because you accused them, not because you pressured them, but because you said nothing. That's the power of silence. It forces the other person to reveal more than they intended. And here's the key. You're not using silence to manipulate. You're using it to observe what people do when they feel pressure. Because pressure doesn't create behavior. It reveals it. Trick number 4. The cognitive load tell. Now let's talk about something most people never notice. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. The brain has limits. Imagine this. You ask someone a simple question. What did you do yesterday? They answer instantly. Smooth, natural, effortless, because they're recalling something real. Now imagine you ask something slightly different. Who else was there when that happened? And suddenly, there's a pause. Their eyes shift upward. Their speech slows down. Their body becomes still. That moment right there is what you're looking for. Because now, the brain is working. Here's what's happening behind the scenes. When someone tells the truth, they access memory. Memory is already stored. It flows. But when someone is lying, the brain has to build. It has to create a story, make it believable, check if it makes sense, watch your reaction, adjust in real time. That's a lot. And the brain can only handle so much at once. Now imagine 2 people again. One is telling the truth, the other is constructing something. The truthful one, relaxed, consistent, fluid. The other, you'll notice micro delays, tiny pauses. Their system lags. Not dramatically, not obviously, but just enough. And here's the key move. Don't ask aggressive questions. Ask unexpected ones. Questions that break the flow. Questions they didn't prepare for. Because truth doesn't need preparation. But lies? They do. So when you see that hesitation, that slowdown, that mental buffering, don't interrupt it. Don't rush it. Just watch, because that lag is the closest thing you'll get to a real-time signal that something isn't fully aligned. Trick number 5. Pronoun shifting. Now this one is quiet, subtle, almost invisible. But once you start hearing it, it changes how you listen forever. Imagine someone telling you a story. At the beginning they say, I made that decision. I handled the situation. I chose that path. Clear, direct, ownership. Now imagine the same person. Later in the conversation, the decision was made, it kind of just happened. We ended up doing that. Do you hear it? The shift from I to something distant. This isn't random. This is psychological distancing. When people feel comfortable with something, they own it. But when discomfort enters, they step away from it. Not physically, but linguistically. Now imagine 2 scenarios. Person A says, I messed up. I made the wrong call. Person B says, things didn't go as planned. Same situation, very different positioning. One takes ownership, the other creates distance. And here's the important part. They're usually not doing it consciously. This is automatic, the brain protecting itself, reducing emotional discomfort. So the next time you're listening to someone, don't just listen to what they say, listen to how they say it. When the I disappears, ask yourself, what are they stepping away from? Because that shift always means something changed internally, and that's where the real information is. Trick number 6, the pacifying behavior index. Now we move to the body, because the body is harder to control than words. Imagine this, someone is sitting across from you, calm, composed, confident. Then, a certain topic comes up, and suddenly, they touch their neck. A few seconds later, they rub their hands, then adjust their collar, then touch their face. Small movements, easy to ignore, but they're not random. These are called pacifying behaviors, and they happen when the brain detects stress. Not just danger, but discomfort, tension, pressure, uncertainty. Here's what the brain does. It sends a signal to the body, calm down. And the body responds with self-touch, because physically that helps regulate the nervous system. Now imagine tracking this. A conversation goes on for 10 minutes. Everything seems normal. But at minute 6, a specific topic comes up, and that's when the touches begin. That's not coincidence, that's a signal. Not that the person is lying, not that something is wrong, but that something matters. Now imagine 2 versions again. Version 1. You ignore it. Conversation moves on. Nothing gained. Version 2. You notice the exact moment the behavior starts. You remember the topic. You circle back later. And suddenly, you see the reaction again. That's when patterns form, and patterns are where truth lives, because the body reacts before the mind can filter. And that gives you something incredibly valuable: timing. Not just what triggered them, but when it did. And that's where understanding begins. Trick number 7, the commitment consistency trap. Now the final one. And this one explains a lot more than just conversations. It explains behavior, decisions, even identity. Imagine this. You ask someone a simple question. Do you believe in being honest? They say yes. Then, do you think people should take responsibility for their actions? Yes again. Then, do you think consistency matters in how people behave? Another yes. Now something interesting happens. You present a bigger idea, a more important point, and instead of resistance, they lean toward it. Why? Because the brain hates inconsistency. Once someone commits to something, even something small, their brain starts building a pattern, and breaking that pattern feels uncomfortable. So instead, the brain aligns, not because the person is weak, but because the brain is efficient. Now imagine 2 approaches. Approach 1. You jump straight into your main point. You get resistance, pushback, defensiveness. Approach 2. You build alignment first. Small agreements, simple truths. And by the time you reach your main idea, the ground is already prepared. This is used everywhere. Negotiation, sales, leadership, even therapy. But here's the important distinction. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding how people process agreement. Because people don't decide based on logic alone. They decide based on consistency with what they already believe. So when you align with that, you reduce friction. And when you reduce friction, people open up. Let's wrap this up. 7 patterns, 7 signals, 7 ways people reveal more than they intend to. Now imagine walking into your next conversation and actually seeing what's happening. Not just hearing words, but noticing shifts, pauses, expressions, silence, the baseline, the micro-expression, the silence, the lag. The language, the body, the pattern. These were always there. You just weren't trained to see them. But now you are. And once you see people this way, you don't go back. Because now you understand something most people don't. People don't hide the truth very well. They just rely on others not paying attention. And from this point forward, you are paying attention. If this changed the way you see people, subscribe. Because this is just the beginning.